Located near Fort McMurray in the heart of Athabasca lies the Alberta oil sands. These oil sands stretch 140,000 kilometers and represent the largest mineable oil source in Canada. Of the 140,000 kilometers, only 4,800 kilometers is mineable bitumen, as the remaining 97% is located too deep underground to be efficiently mined. The Alberta reserves contain approximately 168 billion barrels of oil, which ranks third in the world for a single oil reserve.
The Alberta oil sands generate billions of dollars each year for the provincial and federal government. In addition, it creates thousands of jobs for citizens of Alberta. With the known economic prosperity that is linked to the oil sands and the world's oil necessity continuously increasing, it will also drastically increase the impact it has on the environment. Effects such as acidifying products from emissions, tailings ponds, increasing deforestation, and the amount of water used in bitumen extraction are distinct human-induced environmental impacts that are often overlooked in dealings with the oil sands.
Carbon dioxide is a major byproduct produced from the production of petroleum. When released into the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide molecules will trap infrared radiation and reflect it back to the Earth's surface. This warms the Earth and contributes to the global warming phenomenon. So with an increase in carbon dioxide emissions from the production and extraction of oil from the oil sands, the concentration of the greenhouse gas will rise, and the Earth's temperature will continue to rise. This creates a positive runaway feedback loop. One strategy to help minimize the effect of greenhouse gas emission from the oil sands is through the implementation of the carbon capture and storage process. In this process, up to 90% of the carbon dioxide produced is captured by pipeline and is then relocated into carefully selected areas of geological rock formation, where it will then be stored. This will reduce the atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration and could even essentially bolster extraction yields in the process. A process called enhanced oil recovery is when gas, in this case carbon dioxide, is injected into the ground adjacent to the extraction well. When the gas is pumped into the bedrock, it will expand and push trapped excess oil closer to the extraction well to be recovered. This could increase the maximum yield of the oil sands while contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
The provincial government put forth $1.3 billion over the span of 15 years into the carbon capture and storage method in 2008. But because of the increasing demand for oil and the rapid growth of the Alberta oil sands, we will see minimal impact on the emission problem, as the net increase of carbon dioxide production will increase substantially.
When extracting the oil from the ground, it needs to be separated from the sand and other components by the use of hot water. Anywhere from 3 to 5 barrels of water are needed to extract 1 barrel of oil. This water that is essential in the oil sands is then placed in the tailings ponds to be temporarily stored. These tailing ponds are a mixture of water, fine clay, and a variety of carcinogenic toxins and acids, and that when contained together make up a porridge-like consistency. These massive sludge dams dominate the northern Alberta landscape. As the largest one in the world, the Syncrude Tailings Dam occupies nearly 700 million cubic yards. Even though they are widely used by oil sands, they pose large environmental threats to the environment and the wildlife around them. Many of these ponds are not plastic lined and consistently leak carcinogenic contaminants into the groundwater surrounding the pond and often make its way to the adjacent Athabasca River, which can then be used point source pollution to contaminate anything in contact downstream. Even without direct source of contact with humans, the bioaccumulation of the contaminants can lead to biomagnification through ingestion of contaminated wildlife because of the many reserves that live primarily around the Athabascan River.
Tailings ponds also affect wildlife directly, as recently in early November, 122 birds had died from landing on Syncrude and Suncor's ponds. The sludge in the ponds had adhesive-like properties, and when in contact with the animals, it will stick to their appendages and limbs, impeding them from flying away, inhibiting their growth, and smothering them. The carcinogenic toxins can also get into their body and can cause abnormal growth and formation of necrotic tumors. Although many deterrence and scare tactics are used on the tailings pond, a study by Colleen Cassidy St. Clair, a biologist at the University of Alberta, stated that many birds get accustomed to the variety of scare tactics used, which may result in many freely landing on tailings ponds. For this reason alone, It's impossible to reduce the wildlife impacted by the tailings ponds to zero without finding better solutions. A solution to tailings ponds is to switch from wet to dry methods, a process that would hopefully require no water for oil extraction. In dry tailings, industries would use a chemical solvent or polymer that would help separate the water, bitumen, and sand and solvent into distinct layers, which would allow the water to be immediately recycled. This would result in no tailings ponds needed and would reduce the negative impact on the environment. Dry stacking would also avoid any leakage or seeping of crude contaminants into the groundwater and Athabasca River. Switching to this dry method would help reduce the chances of toxins contacting wildlife directly.
Another environmental concern with the Alberta oil sands is the production of acid rain emissions into the atmosphere. Currently, sulfur emissions in the form of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen emissions in the form of nitrogen oxide carry highly acidic properties. When displaced in the environment by geological processes such as wind and rain, this acidity will disturb various ecosystems such as acidically burnt trees that could be hundreds of kilometers away from the original site. As the oil sands continue to grow, so will these emissions and so will the number of ecosystems impacted by the Alberta oil sands. This type of particle movement is similar to the grasshopper effect, as the contaminants can be transported to colder regions, particularly to the northern areas, and affect regions far from the actual site of synthesis. A solution to these harmful acidifying agents is to reduce the type of petroleum used in the trucks and machinery at the oil sands. Switching to an ultra-low sulfur diesel will help in reducing the sulfur emissions from the mining truck fleet. To help mitigate the nitrogen oxide emissions from the plants can be equipped with selective catalytic reduction technology. With this technology, it would take the nitrogen oxides emitted from the combustion process and with the aid of a catalyst, would convert it to safe nitrogen and water. Commercial catalytic reduction systems have been shown to reduce acidic emissions by 70 to 95%.
Digging the bitumen out of the ground, squeezing the oil and converting it into synthetic crude is a monumental challenge. It requires vast amounts of capital, Brobdingnagian technology, and an array of skilled workers. In short, it is an enterprise of epic proportions, akin to building the pyramids or China's Great Wall, only bigger.
Unfortunately, unlike California and other oil reserve locations, Alberta's policy on air quality and air pollution is more lenient when it comes to these emissions. This drawback is a direct correlation of the lack of effectiveness policymakers and the government has had on helping preserve our environment and limit the negative impacts from human-induced activities. Earlier stated by Prime Minister Harper, he addresses the oil sands while ignoring any environmental issues accompanied with them. With this neglect imposed by our federal government, we will continue to see advancements in oil recovery programs, which are more mandated than advancements to minimize the environmental impact from the oil sands. Although the Alberta oil sands show incredible economic upside, the vast negative environmental impacts match it step for step. We can mitigate some human-induced impacts through implementations of selective catalytic reduction technology, carbon capture and storage processes, and the use of dry tailings ponds, but we cannot stop there.
We need the policymakers and provincial and federal government to help take action in cleaning up the North oil sands and pushing change to promote a more balanced approach to retrieving Alberta's black gold.